All right, we are now live on YouTube. I'm going to hit the record button so we can have this all ready for the podcast. And here we go. All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Professional Brotherhood podcast. I am happy to have a couple of phenomenal guests with me tonight. One who should be familiar to you if you have listened to the podcast in the past.
And if you haven't, you should.
If you haven't, you should. That's Brandon Heggie. Brandon was on episode number 35, where we dove into some trials and tribulations of EMS. And I also have joining us this evening, Dr. Michelle Kent. And Dr. Michelle is actually who hooked me up with Brandon to record the last episode. So she has been listening to the show for a while, and we've been going back and forth on social media a bit. And welcome, both of you. Happy to have you.
Thank you much.
Yeah, thank you very much for having us.
Absolutely. Thank you for being here. So let's start with you, Dr. Michelle. You want to give us a quick introduction?
I sure can.
Absolutely.
So I am Dr. Michelle Kent, and I'm a licensed primary care physician here in Washington State. I work at a clinic called the Heart of Wellness in Tumwater, and it's just right outside of Olympia, our state capital. I specialize not only in men's health, but my primary focus within my practice and my passion within my practice is to curtail and specialize my care to primary care providing for first responders. And it just so happens to be that the majority of the first responder community that I do work with, they are firefighter, paramedic, EMS. So that's just typically what I end up focusing largely on. But that's me and my practice in a nutshell.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Thank you for joining us. I know we've been going back and forth for a little while. Sometimes it's difficult getting on the same schedule when we're sitting on opposite coasts, but I'm glad this worked out, and happy to have you. So thanks for being here.
Thank you very much for having me. I really appreciate the honor and privilege.
Absolutely. Brandon, want to give a little bio intro?
Sure. Yeah, so I'm Brandon Heggie. I'm a firefighter paramedic up here in Washington State, and Dr. Kent happens to be my doctor and sent me the direction to Brian. So, but kind of my overall stance right now, I do a lot of national speaking conference-wise and work in wildland firefighting, do rescue operations, things like that. But kind of focusing more on like critical care leadership type stuff right now with what I have going on at work. So been doing it for about 14 years and got a long way to go. And I still don't know what I want to be when I grow up. So we're going to do this.
If you did not listen, if you haven't listened to episode 35 and you're tuning in, I would go back and, like Brandon said, give a listen, because he's worn a lot of hats in not a lot of time in the service. He's worn a few different hats in fire and EMS, and you were even a reserve deputy or something for a while.
Yeah, reserve deputy and tactical medic for the SWAT team. So that's trauma and all that stuff. That's my favorite.
Yeah, so he's got a very interesting background that's touched in a lot of different areas. So tonight we're going to talk about energy drinks and emergency services, and more importantly, emergency services personnel. I won't tell anybody what's in my.
We discussed this earlier.
We already discussed this.
Sitting there drinking.
I asked if I could sit here and drink a Bang while we were recording tonight, and everyone was like, "Yeah, absolutely, go for it." But listen, it's something that it's definitely a conversation that should be had, needs to be had, and I'm not sure a lot of people are having it. Brandon does an actual seminar on the topic, and the all jacked up title that I entitled this podcast, I stole from his seminar. So that's the name of his seminar. But I know, look, I'm not going to lie, I enjoy a good energy drink every once in a while. Not a lot. I have definitely got myself in the mindset of watching what I consume. But watching the younger generation, which I am not anymore, when I'm out at the training center, it's not uncommon to see, a 16, 17, 18-year-old kid come in with not one, but, 2 bangs, 2 monsters, 3 Red Bulls, whatever, to come in for a day of training. And like, when I say you guys got to hydrate for the day, like that's what they think hydrating is. So it's a good conversation for us to have, and we're going to jump into it. So where do we want to start? I'm excited.
Well, so the way that I started I'll get started with why I did this topic in the first place.
Okay.
It's because I was a victim. And by victim, I mean, I used to consume energy drinks all the time. If you talk about my old co-workers, I was literally like 1, 2, 3 a day, maybe those massive monsters, and that was and to me, it was almost like funny at the same time, because more or less I'd be like, all right, hey, let's piss off Heggie's partner by giving him a whole bunch of energy drinks. So I would just do it. And it wasn't a big deal for me, because I'm like, all right, whatever. I like make people happy, things like that. So it was almost a social thing at that point. But then it gets to the point where it's like, oh, I'm exhausted. Let's have another one. And going on from there. And, this is over years where they even get better and more tasty. And like, I totally would right now go throw down and get a bang, but I know what it'll do to me. So,
right.
But then this is where it's going to get into like the moderation portion. I mean, you can have, if you have one, it's probably not too big of a deal. And I'm not saying don't have them. I'm just saying be leery and like, educated on what you're doing. So I really got started, and I told you guys this, I was brainstorming. I actually had a bang sitting next to me while I'm brainstorming this entire lecture. And it really opened me up to focus more on the individual body systems and, everything from your psych issues to sex drive to absolutely everything. So it made it really, really broad, but I narrowed it down to all those little groups. And by doing that, it actually really helped me out with making the determination of I need to do something different, because I was getting more anxious. I would only be able to focus when I actually had consumed something. And now after learning about all this stuff and then meeting Dr. Kent and going through and talking about some other I guess, herbal routes to go, which we'll talk about here in a little while, that's actually done a massive change in my life. And I'm not nearly as anxious as I used to be. And I feel better and all this. So it kind of started there. And yeah, it's for us, but we also, like, our patients also do it too. So I've had a couple energy drink patients who actually had 6 or 7 overnight, and they can't sleep and they're super jittery. I'm like, but there's actually some medical problems that could be causing them to have some issues. Right. So, we should still evaluate them, take them to the hospital. So it's kind of just more eye-opening and more educational based. Still, you can do it. I'm not saying they're not horrible, but be educated about it. So.
Well, so something that I found interesting, and you sent us your presentation to look over this afternoon, and I kind of breezed through it while I was at work quick. And, you read all the different ingredients that are in these things, and to most people, they really don't mean anything. Like I read the ingredients and they don't really mean anything to me. I just, I see caffeine, obviously that means something to me. A lot of the other ingredients don't. But your stat numbers were wild. First of all, the billions and the size of the industry, of the energy drink industry, and how it ties into so many different things. I mean, Red Bull, for example, with all its different marketing ploys, will say, because they're involved in sport, they're involved in extreme sports, they're involved in, I mean, anything they can slap a logo on, they're very, very good at it. And obviously that helps market their product. But one thing that you did say is somebody that might not have drank a Red Bull when they came out however many years ago, because it's not really the best tasting energy drink in the world, right? Would probably love a Bang or a Rain that has 3 times the caffeine of what the first energy drinks were.
Totally. And I got the numbers sitting here in front of me, and just for everyone knows it. So it's a little bit old. It's from 2013, but in 2013, annual consumption of energy drinks was 12.5 billion liters, which is equivalent to 275 tractor trailer fuel tankers. So
Wow.
obviously there's different sizes, but 275,000 of those. So it's impressive, and the marketing is huge. I mean, how cool! Like, I was a teen, being a teenager, even now, I'm like, yeah, I want to race rally cars and be trophy trucks, and all of them are logoed Red Bull. I'm like, I'm gonna go to Red Bull because he's drinking one at the trophy stand for the podium, and it's a cool factor. It's like what I should be drinking, and their marketing is fantastic. And freaking props to them for that. But
sure.
It's that chugging a whole bunch of them in a day thing.
Yeah. So, Dr. Kent, jump in here and let's talk about first responders, specifically first responders, right? Because why are first responders turning to energy drinks? So we mainly focus on the volunteer side. All right, maybe you didn't get any sleep because you were out all night at an incident, whatever that incident may be. You have to go to work in the morning, right? Because that's what you do. And, that's the energy drink is your crutch to get you through the day. On the career side, it might be to get you through your shift, your 24-hour shift, right? When you're busy.
Right.
What are some things that, that we should be concerned with, or we should be thinking about, other than just what jumps out at people? I mean, I think most people, when they read a can and it says, warning, this could be dangerous, it has 350 milligrams of caffeine in it, and if you have X underlying issues, you probably shouldn't drink it. But what about the person that doesn't have those issues? It's just like, I'm good. It's like drinking 4 cups of coffee, I'll be fine.
Right. Well, I'm still trying to figure out why you guys are relying on it, because it's not like you can't get 8 hours of sleep a night, right? Your sleep is just perfect.
It's fantastic. And I have a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old. It works great.
Yeah. So what are you complaining about? Come
Absolutely.
on now. Yeah, just get your 8 hours of sleep. You'll be all right.
Yep.
It's that. So with the first responder community, it's a plethora of reasons, right? So you're frankly sleep deprived. That's one large thing. You're just sleep deprived. So AKA we are fatigued upon waking, and we need a quick boost. We need a source. And it's too easy to just go to these energy drinks because of the marketing, because of the taste, because of you can buy them in like 24 packs at Costco and call it good. There's a lot of folks that also just don't like coffee, and coffee is typically the main caffeine source that folks will go to. And as we age, it's almost just a normalcy to have coffee in the morning, regardless if you actually prefer the flavor or not. It's just habitual, and it's a part of our society. We see a little bit of, the reliance and the habit with relation to the whys. And so that's, for me, what I typically with my patients try to always hammer in and dial in, basically, are the whys behind this. So in your community, you're sleep deprived. There's a lot of sleep dysregulation that leads to circadian rhythm dysfunction. So that can just further impact the dysregulation of your hormones that can impact your energy level overall as well. So it's kind of cyclical, and it's like, well, where do we begin? Where do we start? So again, it kind of comes down to the whys of things that I see with people overall, regardless if you're a first responder or not. It's like, well, why are you tired in the first place? Right. And let's try to address that. So Brandon had mentioned something at the get-go about, when you see your patients on calls, there might be another reason for why they're jittery and anxious besides the fact that they just drank, 7 vodkas with Red Bull. Like, there's maybe more to it. Maybe they have a thyroid dysfunction. So it's always kind of coming down to the why. And if it's that we are taxed with our sleep, then again, let's work with your community and the idea of there's only so much that you can do. There's only so much that's in your control, and there's a lot that's outside of your control. So identifying those factors, I believe, is very important. So you can't control what time you're going to get a call. You can't control the nature of the call, how long you're going to be out there for, and how it's actually going to impact you. A lot of that is completely out of your control.
It's a little bit comforting knowing maybe I'm not on the toilet all.
Well, that was a nice ad in the background.
Don't know where that came from, but we'll just keep right on going.
That's a good ad pop.
So what are you buying on Amazon?
Awkward.
Oh my god, that's funny.
That was great. The joys of life.
I told you, you're never going to want to do this again. You just have me on in no time. Yeah. So it's a lot of addressing the why, so again, you can't control a lot of that, but what we can control is when we actually put ourselves to sleep. Sure, you might get a call 2 seconds later, but training your circadian rhythm to this is when I go to sleep. This is my melatonin production. And then waking up hopefully on the same time will be another stimuli for cortisol production. So a lot of it's coming down to like the whys of things. And I just feel like oftentimes our stressors in our life are so significant that we just go to what's easy. And energy drinks and coffee are that. And unfortunately, as life continues, we are just inundated with a lot of little stressors in our life, and they're all around us, just from even wearing, you could feel like you're the most calm, but what if you're the one that's wearing that Apple Watch and every 5 seconds you're getting like a notification of something, right? Yeah. I can't tell you how many times I sit with patients and we're like in an in-depth conversation and they are just revealing the most beautiful of information that is deep, and then they get a notification and it's like taken somewhere else.
Right.
And these are just little factors to your nervous system just that are in influence, and so we need to learn from it. So other things that folks can have that we would correlate as I'm tired and I need a caffeine source is something that Brandon brought up. You drink so many energy drinks, you become thirsty. You're dehydrated. So all that caffeine is actually dehydrating you. So are you actually tired or are you actually thirsty? Treat the cause is the point here. So I get it. I understand why we drink caffeine. I drink it myself every morning. I really enjoy the taste of it. It is a nice boost. It is a great antioxidant source. So if we can understand the benefits and keep it in moderation, that would be key. If we could address the causes as to what makes us increase the intake of it, that would be ideal. And then just cope with what we can't, deal with directly, and create boundaries to what we can.
All right. So, and everybody is different, right? I mean, how each individual reacts to these things is different, right? Now,
Yeah.
I know for myself, I went through the Red Bull and vodka stage a while ago, right? Brandon shaking his head. He did too. I could go
Still
out.
in that phase.
Yeah, I could go out, on a Friday night and be up till, God knows what time in the morning, drinking Red Bull and vodkas, and come home and go right to sleep, like not even miss a beat. But I know other people that if they did the same thing they'd be wired for sound all night long. But that's kind of always the way I've been. Like when I used to work late nights, I would come home drinking a large coffee from Dunkin' Donuts. My wife would be like, "How do you do that?" And I'm like, "I don't know. I like the taste of coffee. I like I like drinking it, and I can go to bed when I need to go to bed." It's just, but it affects other people completely different. Like you would never fall asleep.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that speaks to a little bit of a tolerance being built, and that, you've kind of exceeded a tolerance necessarily, or in a way. But then also I would question if you're actually sleeping or are you sedated.
Good point. Yeah.
Right.
Sure.
So oftentimes folks will say the only way I can fall asleep is if I have a couple drinks before bed. And it's
Right.
What your conscious mind believes is that you're sleeping because you're physically still in a bed. But that would not necessarily be the definition of sleep. You might just be sedated.
Yeah. Good point.
And then that is not restful sleep. And so then that's the catch-22. That's where the cycle continues. And so it's just like digging deeper into what it is.
For sure. One of the things you started to segue into that I definitely think ties into all this, and I know in the volunteer world I talk about it a lot, is hydration, right? Because dehydration is a huge problem because people just don't drink enough water, or things that hydrate them properly, and they are drinking coffee throughout the day, or they're drinking soft drinks, or they're drinking energy drinks, or they're drinking whatever it is that they're drinking, and then they go to work, right, because the pager goes off or an alarm comes in, and they can't perform because they're dehydrated, and they don't, if the thought is, oh, I've been drinking water, I've been drinking all day, but what have you been drinking? What are you putting into your body, and is it properly hydrating it?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's where dialing in the specifics of it all is important. I have a lot of patients that will tell me, like, well, coffee has water in it, doesn't it? And it's like,
yeah,
good one.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
And Bang has some water in it, right? Like, we all think like they're fluids. Like, as long as I'm drinking a fluid, that counts. And it's like, not really. Like, we need water. We need the H2O molecules. But then a part of rehydration is also the minerals.
Yeah, for sure.
Something that I do see in your community quite often is that the adrenal glands, we call them the party hats because they sit right on top of your kidneys, and they're the ones that are responsible for releasing cortisol. Cortisol is your stress hormone, and so anytime you're basically activated with a stressor, there's a burst of cortisol that will get released for an appropriate reason. Cortisol, as well as aldosterone, that's another hormone that's needed, that's released from the adrenal gland, and that one supports blood pressure regulation and electrolyte balance. Regardless, the adrenal gland is activated often in your community because there's a lot of just responding and need to respond, and not just in the acute call, but how often are you guys thinking about the call afterwards, right? And sitting around the round table and discussing it, or on your own and just thinking about things. So the adrenal gland is often activated largely, and it really, there's a couple different layers to it. There's a mineral layer, actually, a mineral corticoid layer, and it really relies on sodium and potassium. There's other layers that, they need other essential electrolytes, essentially. So when we talk about hydration, it's not just solely water. You need electrolyte support as well. So if we're considering, like, how do I know how hydrated I am? Well, you could use your urine output, not just the output in the how much you're urinating, but the color to it. So if your urine is clear, you're overhydrated. Actually, you need more electrolytes. And so that would be a good time to, I think that a lot of fire stations should just provide to their employees an electrolyte support, because we know you're going to be deficient. So IV hydration packets, noon tablets, emergency packets, mineral, they're like mineral drops that you can get. It makes water taste soft, but it's because it's minerals. So basically just replenishing your body with that will be helpful. If you know you're dehydrated, it's when you're not urinating enough because your body has nothing to put out, or it's really, really dark and kind of hazy and you have too many solutes. You need to dilute yourself. So that's kind of the way that I would look at it. And then also just symptomology. Fatigue can be a big dehydration picture.
So you completely just washed out one of my favorite sayings, is that clear pee is happy pee. Like you just completely just threw that out the window. I've been using that one for years, and now I can't use it anymore. So
I knew I wasn't going to get invited back. I knew it. Here we go.
No F-bombs yet, though.
Yeah, no F-bombs. I'm trying, man. I'm trying real hard.
That's all right. We're good there. So Brandon, let's dive into a little of what you found in your research, because you had a lot in that.
It's a whole lot.
There's a lot in your presentation, definitely more than we are going to cover tonight. obviously we're going to tell those listening that if they ever get the opportunity to go listen to you somewhere, that they should do that in 2021 when we get back to conferences and fun stuff. But anyway, so what are some things that you found in your research?
So kind of the biggest highlights of them, because a lot of people say kidney stones, things like that, focus on the kidneys. I'm like, kidneys are actually pretty well functioning, especially for our kind of, as long as you're pretty decently fit and you are hydrating still, you're not really gonna have to worry too much about kidney stones from energy drinks. It's actually a whole lot more than just that. So kind of the things that really hit home, some of it was statistics, and then big one is the amount of binge drinking. Because what happened, and when I'm talking binge drinking, I'm actually talking alcohol, because we talked about vodka, Red Bull, the combination of the type of energy and the booze, you're pretty much 4 times more likely to binge if you're doing the two at the same time. And, especially for kids, because kids is the coolest thing in the world. So the more, more energy drink you have, the more you can drink the alcohol, and the longer you can go throughout the night and party and have a good old time. But that does have the long-term effects. Mm-hmm. But there's 3 categories. There are 3, I guess, groups that really hit home with all this stuff. And I know, Doc, you'll be able to go even more in depth than I can. But the first one is just straight up cardiac, because we're drinking all this stuff, 300 milligrams of caffeine in a Bang energy drink. I got a whole list of all the different sizes, but general cup of coffee, 60 to 90, maybe.
Right.
But 300. Okay. And it actually says, I believe it says on there that 1 can is actually 2 servings. So, or something along those lines. Anyway, you can go check yourself when you go and look at it and put it back. So with, but with all these, it's not just the caffeine. You have taurine, you have a whole bunch of other chemicals that react the same way as caffeine. So you're getting the caffeine, plus you're getting a whole bunch of other crap that acts as caffeine. And all this stuff is really just dumping your adrenal, your cardiac output has to increase because your blood's pumping more. I'm pretty sure everyone's got that point where they have an energy drink or a whole bunch of coffee and they feel themselves sweating sitting still. That's not the best thing in the world to have going on.
Sure.
So I have a bunch of cases. I know some people who's happened to. There's a case over in the UK where she was 33 years old, and she would get this point where it was it's an addiction. You get addicted to caffeine, and she started drinking these energy drinks, and she's working at like a gas station at night or something like that, and she get tired, be like, oh, time for another one. Keep going. Oh, tired. Time for another one. Mm-hmm. And it got to the point where she was doing 3 to 5 a day. Within about 6 months, she ended up going in and seeing a cardiologist and having a pacemaker placed in her. Wow. So, yeah, and it doesn't take long. I mean, as long as you're maintaining that obviously habitual binge, you can really have some cardiovascular effects. My mom's boyfriend's coworker or something like that, he was in his 20s, had to get a heart transplant because he was consuming too many. My little brother, he and when I'm saying all this, everyone's gonna start thinking and be like, oh my god, I can relate with this, because like my little brother, he was in high school, and I remember him drinking Monsters all the time. And then he went out to go fishing on a boat at a local lake, and he's like, oh, I'm gonna go take a piss off the side of the boat. Well, he couldn't. He was so constricted, he could not urinate, so he actually had to and dehydrated. He actually had to drink the lake water so he can piss. Wow. So you'll see this all around. So, but yeah, going back to the cardiac, you can have some serious issues with that, long-lasting issues. The next one, I was actually surprised. I spoke to my aunt's actually a dentist, so I talked to her about this stuff, and they have, over the years, I mean, we've all been told, years ago, soda pop. Stop drinking soda pop, causes a lot of cavities. All the sugar, right? Sure. Well, now they're not seeing people for cavities because of pop, because of soda. They're actually seeing it from the habitual drinking of caffeine and energy drinks. Mm-hmm. And the argument is, well, they're sugar-free. I don't know why I'm getting my cavities. And it's not because they're sugar-free. They're extremely acidic. So people are, again, they're getting addicted to the caffeine portion and just keep drinking and drinking and drinking. And some of them even have a pH up until 1 or 2. So we're almost to the acidity of battery acid. So if you do that over time, and again, there's tons of cases out there, you don't have to look hard. You do it over time, you're going to develop the same type thing that you're getting from meth mouth. Your teeth are going to be falling out and literally rotting from within.
It's enough to make me quit right there.
Right? I know. I saw it. Yeah. There's a picture in that presentation. You look at the picture?
I saw it.
So that, and then the one that I have in my presentation, that's the biggest, and I want you to touch on this a lot more, is the psychiatric portion. Okay, because this messes with our head so much. Anxiety, insomnia, inexhaustibility, restlessness, hallucinations over 300 milligrams of caffeine a day, violent behavior, caffeine intoxication, caffeine-induced anxiety. These are actually the caffeine intoxication, caffeine-induced anxiety, caffeine-induced sleep disorder, and caffeine-related disorder are all actually diagnostic psych disorders from Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. So we actually now have, because of caffeine and how much everyone's been drinking, we have documented disorders because of it. So this the psych portion is way further up there. It's like mental health stuff these days. It's really coming to light, and people are going to need to start paying attention to it, because if you look at everyone who drinks energy drinks, coffee, whatever, they're suffering from some of these. So, but it's like, no, everyone's doing it, so it should be normal. But to me, it's extremely worrisome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. Well, and again, I mean, I think a lot of it has to do with in the younger generation, the kids that are drinking it from the teens up. And look, some of them have warning labels on them that minors shouldn't even be. Great big warning label on there. Yeah, yeah, exactly. That minors shouldn't even be drinking them because of the contents and the amount of caffeine and other things that are in there. But like you said, I think a lot of it has to do with just the appeal. Just the entire appeal to the can, the flavor, the marketing, the colors, the logo, the fact that, all right, this one's got 300 milligrams. Oh, let me try the one that's got 350, right? Because there's a few of them out there that have 350. If 300's good, 350 has got to be better, right? So there's so much that pulls you into it. Coffee's coffee. Yeah, you either like it or you don't.
Yep.
Yeah, it's really
extra creamer.
Right. It's really that simple. So Doc, dive into some of those things that Brandon was talking about regarding actual diagnosis for these issues.
Yeah, so you spoke a little bit around there's the oddity of the caffeine-induced mania, caffeine-induced anxieties, restlessness, and a lot of that can actually be related to the fact that caffeine actually raises dopamine, and dopamine in those higher levels can have you feeling that way, the agitation, the restlessness. But if you are a individual that has a dopamine like your neurotransmitter binding site is different than others, then you can potentially have a dopamine dysfunction and lead to a brain function dysfunction, i.e. mental health disorder. So some of these you don't really know until you're already engaged in the behavior. So you wouldn't really know that you're going to be bipolar and that it can be either influenced or stimulated by excessive caffeine intake until you were to do so. So some of these things you don't really know until it's already happening. But there's just a lot of data that has come out to show, that caffeine can induce mania and some of these things. And it comes around to, it's not just so straight and forward. It's not like coffee, energy, done. It's like, well, what else is the coffee actually doing to you? So you had brought up, that coffee is coffee is coffee is coffee. It is. There's more consideration around it as well. We could really get into the weeds of the pesticides that are put on it, and is that now an endocrine disruptor that you're dealing with? But then to the other extreme of the energy drinks, well, they're not regulated. And so
Right.
anything can be put inside of it and you don't really know. And sometimes it'll just say natural flavors. Well, what the hell is that?
Sure.
Right.
It could be anything.
It
Right.
can be anything.
Absolutely.
It's
Yeah.
piss flavored. That's natural.
Piss flavored. Yeah.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's even there's a little shots that you can buy next to the candy, and they are pink and they've got unicorns on it. Like, who are they marketing at? Are they
Sure.
marketing at a 75-year-old woman? No.
Right.
Right? They're marketing it at children, and they're going to purchase it, and we're going to create this habit of abuse, essentially. So that's a little bit of the psychological component with the induction of the more extreme cases of the mania and things like that. Other things though that make me think just about the coffee use in general is something that Brandon had mentioned. We sweat often, we get agitated, we get amped up. So what is all of that falling under? That's all falling under the sympathetic nervous system being activated. So coffee will stimulate the production of cortisol. And when we do that, we're actually stimulating our sympathetic nervous system. The sympathetic nervous system is basically like your gas pedal to the car, that a stressor or a danger of some sort is being perceived by you, whether it's an actuality or something that you were just thinking about. So even just the anticipation of stress in itself is a stressor. So we basically activate a particular component of our nervous system, the sympathetic nervous system, and that's the fight or flight response. It works to save our ass, but if we're constantly triggering it, well, then we're constantly feeling amped up and in that environment. And that's what the coffee can do for us, is really just drive us into it. It's good and it's bad because it increases our alertness. It increases our ability to have the drive and the motivation to do that task at hand.
Mhm.
But too much of it is where it becomes an issue. So again, the moderation, choosing clean quality products that aren't going to give you some other side effect related to it. But it's that sympathetic nervous system that I think that we should also come back to, in a future discussion around heart rate variability and activating the parasympathetic. And one reason why I really would like to talk about that in general with your community is because of how often you're in a sympathetic state. If you're doing let's say you're just doing a 24-hour shift. Well, how many hours prior to going to shift are you anticipating shift? How many hours when you come off of shift are you coming off of shift? So what is your rest and relaxation? What does that actually look like?
Sure.
How often are
Terrible.
you that Yeah. So we feel depleted, we feel tired, and so we treat it. And I can't blame you for doing so. You're doing what you're doing what you know will work.
Sure.
It will lead to some other issues.
And in the volunteer world, that anticipation for the pager that's by your bedside to go off, you're sleeping, but are you really sleeping? You're anticipating that pager going off. And I talk about this all the time. When I was in my 20s, I could go out to a fire at 1 o'clock in the morning, come back a couple hours later and just boom, right back to bed. Now that I'm older, it doesn't work like that anymore. If I go out in the middle of the night and come back a few hours later, I don't fall asleep like I used to. I'm up, I'm thinking about things, like you said, you're always in that state of readiness, that state of thought. You're not resting comfortably, and you're definitely not in a deep sleep for sure.
Right. Yeah, and the body is smart. These organs are smart. Our conscious mind sometimes we get in the way of it all.
Mm-hmm.
And what we do, that impacts our hormones, that impacts, the body is learning through what we do, and what we do in itself can be stressful.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
All right, let's go. I think I got a couple things going on here on the YouTube, a couple questions, some comments. Let's dive into those. And then I don't want to leave everybody thinking, I don't want to leave everybody thinking that we're telling them absolutely cut it all out of your diet, quit tomorrow, go cold turkey. But I do want to give them some healthier, better alternatives before we go. And I know we can do that. But let me hit the YouTube here first. So I've got a couple things going on. I've got Hawk, he's out in the Vegas area, just making a statement. He says he can sleep easy after about 4 to 5 cups of coffee. And one of his cups of coffee is equal about 4 cups and a Nas energy drink. How bad is that for him? I think
I think you know your answer.
We don't have to give an answer.
Yeah, I think we answered that question, Hawk. Thanks. Thanks. And we're going to give you some healthy alternatives when we're done. Regional West Fire. What are your thoughts on product like Liquid IV? Brandon, look at that. So I just started using Liquid IV. Actually, I started using Liquid IV because they were giving it out free at a Spartan race last summer. And it is a hydration amplifier. It also has, vitamin C, potassium, increases your electrolytes. I'm a huge fan of it. I use it often. They have an energy supplement as well that has the there's green tea for caffeine, guara. Am I pronouncing that right? It's what's in that drink? What's in that drink that you sent me?
Yerba Mate.
Yerba Mate. Yeah, that's it. That's in there. See, I'm no expert at this stuff. So, I'm a big fan of it. I'd like these guys to look into it, read the ingredients, and tell me what they think. And if they're not familiar. But let's see what else we got here. I drink coffee, go to sleep, no problem. I like the taste of coffee, and I'm now having decaf coffee. Too throughout that. Yeah. See, I love the taste of coffee myself also. I don't drink decaf because I kind of feel like it's like non-alcoholic beer. Like it's that's
why
just,
waste your time and money?
Right. That's just me. But again, Jeremy over at Crew First Culture, very interesting.
What's up, Jeremy?
Yeah, Jeremy. Very interested to hear healthy alternatives to energy drinks for someone who hates coffee. I know apparently that's weird. I get up at 3 a.m., drive 2 hours to the firehouse. All right, Jeremy, we're going to go into healthy alternatives here in a minute. What else do we got? Hawk. Okay. He's laughing at us for our answer. Okay. So good segue into healthy alternatives, and that's going to help a few of these guys, probably help others listening, and for our friend Jeremy over at Crew First, let's talk about healthy alternatives.
Do it.
Cool.
My apologies, the sun is setting. I'm not really sorry about it at all, but the sun is setting and there's some like weird stuff happening with the way I look. But
I thought there was an eclipse happening in your office. I was like, what's going on?
Just have to deal with it.
Or we went from a live YouTube to a weird TikTok video. I was wondering what. All right, let's talk about healthy alternatives.
Yeah, healthy alternatives. All right. Well, first of all, address the cause. I cannot emphasize that enough. So really, truthfully, identify why you're tired. So this is my plug for if you do not see a physician yet, if you do not have a primary care physician that you work with, I highly encourage you to establish with one. This is gonna annoy me in no time, actually. Okay, so definitely establish care with a primary care physician if you don't have one already, and allow them, if you're willing, to do some blood work to just further identify what might be off. Some things that we could consider that we would see in blood work would be thyroid dysfunction or deficiency of B vitamins or iron. So if we want to think about a healthy alternative to an energy drink or coffee, if we're not preferring that flavor, would be B vitamins. So a B complex. And that's actually something that not only will just naturally increase your energy, but that is also what's needed for a lot of our cellular, it's basically a cofactor to a lot of our metabolism. And that's why you see it in a lot of the energy drinks as well, as along with like zinc and other cofactors. So B complexes would be really good. Vitamin D would also be really good. If you are vitamin D deficient, you will very naturally just start to feel fatigued, have less motivation. And if you live in the Pacific Northwest region where we don't get this cool sunshine quite often, you're most likely deficient. I've only ever had one patient be toxic, who he might be listening now. What's up? And if so, like, again, life in moderation, right? So don't overdose on your vitamins there. Other things that we can consider would be if there's actually a blood sugar imbalance that can largely impact your motivation. And if you're have a dysregulation, you could easily feel fatigued. Could also impact your sleep. So working on your blood sugar balance would be ideal. You know, you might not be the individual that thrives with intermittent fasting, despite the fact that it's a big popular fad and there's a lot of great information coming out in research. We are all individual, so find out what works best for you, and listen to what we're saying, but then take this information and sit with it and see what works best for you. You might not be the person that responds to B vitamins. You might not be the person that needs D. Like, you might just need something else. So again, address the cause and figure out what it is. Go back to the root of it all. So blood sugar imbalance, some things that we could see with that is just needing more healthier fats. Healthier fats would look like coconut oil, avocado oil, macadamia nuts, nuts and seeds in general. So maybe taking a handful of that, would be a little bit of an energy boost. Having some protein could also be beneficial to blood sugar balance and making you feel a little bit better. Deep breathing techniques can also assist with the adrenal fatigue that can basically allow you to feel fatigued. So for somebody that, for instance, is commuting 2 hours one way to work, then they can start to just engage in some breathing regulation and ensure that you're not actually hyperventilating. Doing some nice deep belly breathing in through the nose versus the mouth will definitely be of assistance with all of that. So we've got some deep breathing, we've got some nutraceuticals that you can bring on, like the B vitamins, the D. Other things that we can employ would be that if you're able to actually do a cold plunge. So cold water can activate the parasympathetic. Yeah, we'll have to talk about that one. That's my favorite. Yeah, that's my favorite. So basically, you could take a shower and you can end with a cold burst of water, or you could also just do cold to the face, and that'll wake you right up. Trying to move over here. Okay. Some other things that we could do to basically increase the energy would be various food items. Food items would be, again, the protein, the fat, but largely antioxidants. And so I know that's something that Brandon has a little bit of information around, are goji berries. Goji berries are packed with antioxidants, and antioxidants are something that can help reduce oxidation and improve general well-being. So again, this is kind of addressing it from a different perspective of the why. Why are you feeling that way? Well, it might be that you're a little bit needing some antioxidant support. And we see that again with your community, considering the exposures in your environment. Some herbs that could be really quite helpful. One of my favorite is ashwagandha. Ashwagandha is what we would call an adaptogenic herb. And adaptogens, essentially, they work by assisting your body in the physiology of stress and how you adapt to it. So that's why it's called adaptogen. It really impacts your HPA axis. So that's the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, and that all plays a role.
Mine's heads just exploded everywhere.
Yeah.
This is what every appointment's look like for me with her.
Yeah, that's why they're like 45 minutes, right? Yeah, they're long, they're in depth. But so ashwagandha. So this one really helps with just the physiology of dealing with stress. A typical dose for that one would be like 500 to 600 milligrams daily. Other herbs that we could consider would be would be yerba mate, and there is an energy drink out on the market called yerba mate.
Yep.
That one I'm a big fan of because it provides you caffeine without actually being a stimulant. So you're not going to end up getting that crash later that we often will see with coffee or other energy drinks. As well, yerba mate contains an amino acid called L-theanine. And L-theanine is something that can really support our nervous system and making us just feel less anxious and more relaxed overall. That yerba mate product that you could find at the store is also kind of clean in general, where I am a fan of these hydration packets. But if you do look at the ingredient list, one of the items on it is dextrose. And dextrose is a simple sugar that is chemically, it's made from corn. So if you have a corn intolerance, well, now you're just creating an inflammatory load that you don't need. And it's identical in its chemical structure to glucose. So that can actually impact your blood sugar. So I'm a fan of the ingredients with the exception of the dextrose. But if it's something that you have on hand, hey, why not use it, you know? So that's my take on that product.
So if you're Jeremy and you're commuting 2 hours to work in the morning at 3 o'clock in the morning to go to shift, and you need that feeling of having something in your hand, right?
Yeah.
Like the coffee, right? Because
yeah,
that's a part of it for some people, right? I get up
Yep.
in the morning, regardless of what time it is. The first thing I do is I go downstairs straight to the Keurig, right?
Yeah.
That's like step one of every day. Hit the
Right.
Keurig, make a cup of coffee. So you're driving to work. You want to have something in your hand to drink on that ride.
Yeah.
The yerba mate is an option.
Yep. You
What
could
else?
do.
Teas.
Yep, other teas, yeah, absolutely. So big fan of yerba mate. Tulsi is another one that's also known as holy basil. That's a really great adaptogenic herb, and you can get all sorts of different flavorings with it. So I just dropped my box on the floor over there, but it's a Tulsi sweet rose herbal tea. So Tulsi would be great. Astragalus would be great. Avena, which is oat. If you're actually looking for things that will actually give you caffeine, though, it's going to be the yerba mate and the green tea extracts, or green tea overall. Something, though, that I know we're on limited time here, but something that you did say that I would like to just hone in on momentarily is the habits as well.
Yeah, for
it's
sure.
very common for us to just wake up and go, like the habit is, I'm awake, I drink coffee. I'm awake, I drink coffee. So that's just what we do. And so you might not actually be in this pattern. You might not be the one today to need coffee, but it really is a part of your patterning. So it's understanding as well what your cues are. What is cueing you, what's triggering you to then do this action, and then whatever that action releases, that's your reward system, and that's what kind of makes it the actual habit. So identifying, like, when are you really reaching for the coffee? Anytime I go on a ride along, I drink so much damn coffee, it is ridiculous, and it's only because it's there. That's it.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you guys didn't have a pot of coffee, I wouldn't be drinking it.
Yeah.
So the cue is that I'm there. The cue is that I'm with my people. So again, figuring it out. But if you really want something in your hand, go for the herbal teas. There are also some medicinal mushrooms out there that are very helpful for energy.
Available in Colorado, I believe.
No. Thank you very much for bringing this part up. They're not psychoactive in the sense that you're going to go and hallucinate, and they're illegal. The ones that actually I am speaking to would be chaga, cordyceps, and reishi. There's a lot of research coming around their immune modulation, but also how they can help with energy production. And there's a company called Four Sigmatic, and they have hot cocoa packets, and they have to basically jazz up the flavor of dried mushroom.
Magic cocoa.
Magic cocoa. Yeah. So those are the things that I would recommend. So if you're kind of just thinking like, hey, I'm waking up and I need to start my day, well, quite literally start your day out on the right foot, a good foot. Do some deep breathing while you're in bed, do some nice stretching, really wake yourself up, feel yourself in your own body, and then go drink a glass of water. When we're sleeping, we expire up to 1 liter of water. So if you're waking up and going straight to your coffee, you're already dehydrated, man. You already are.
Yeah.
So wake up, drink some water, drink some herbal teas, see your naturopathic doctor.
Well, one thing you mentioned earlier in the conversation was, what we're wearing on our wrist and how it takes us, immediately out of what we're doing to whatever that notification is. The notification that I can guarantee just about everybody is ignoring on their Apple Watch is the one that tells them to deep breathe for a minute. Right, because everybody gets
Ignore
that
for a day.
Right,
Ignore for a day.
everybody gets that notification, right? And we don't. And another thing we didn't get a chance to talk about, but I'll just throw it out there because it is real, and I know that it is caffeine withdrawal, right?
Yeah.
And what you get.
Totally.
So when I had my surgery last September, I was on a heart healthy diet when I was in the hospital. So obviously I wasn't able to drink any caffeine or have any caffeine products. And that headache is real. I mean that headache when you have not had any caffeine, when your body's expecting that caffeine, it's no joke, so
right.
there's that as well.
Yeah. So, we can all just start to maybe monitor, life in moderation. So just start to monitor how much you really are taking in. A typical coffee that you get at the, a 16 ounce can have about 160 milligrams of coffee, and that can be enough for just one individual. The energy drinks can have up to 300 or more. And again, if there's other ingredients that are sources of caffeine, is that going to be labeled? I don't really know.
Right.
Yeah. So just start to moderate what you're doing.
Yeah. So what I've been doing, and I actually, usually if I do coffee, it's, only at work because I don't even do it at home anymore. And it's all that social setting type thing. Mm-hmm. And what I've switched to, and I'm pushing on all my coworkers, is I just get, it's the raw unsmoked yerba mate tea leaves, and I French press it on my oven. And my wife and I have that with lemon and honey, and it is fantastic. So driving to work, that's a go-to in a Yeti cup. Fantastic. You could ice it. You could do a bunch of other stuff with it. And then they do have that, the Yerba Mate energy drink, which is, if you read it, you're like, oh, I could actually read all these words. And that's really good. Usually I have that on shift, so I don't have time to do the actual brewing of my yerba. I have that with me so I can take that on calls or whatever. So kind of a good go-to.
Maybe you can make us a how-to brew your yerba mate video.
I can do that.
You could do that.
It's so easy.
We could get you out there. All right, let's I got a few other comments here on the YouTube, and then we'll do some final thoughts, and we'll let everybody go for the night. This has been awesome. So Hawk, who commented earlier, wanted to know how he would know what works for him. He's 55 years old. Bro, you're only 5 years older than me. Stop aging yourself like you're a gazillion years old. I would say it's just experimenting with healthy options, right? To figure out what works for you, combined with what Dr. Kent said about actually going to see a physician and seeing if any of your levels are off. Would you guys agree with that?
Yeah, don't undermine your experience. Don't undermine the sophistication of your body. You're not just tired because you have a deficiency of energy. Like, there's a reason for it, and you can't just supplement energy by taking a product. So it would be beneficial to really figure out the why behind it, because there might be something underlying that really should be addressed. And, shame on us as medical professionals if we don't do that justice by figuring it out for you.
Absolutely. I got, what else I take, what's that? You said it before.
Ashwagandha.
Yeah, ashwagandha. I take ashwagandha. It does help with stress. All right. So that's good to hear. Robert Russo says, please tell me there will not be a quiz at the end of this episode.
Joke's on you, buddy.
And Hawk said he thought yerba mate was a soda. So
it's a caffeinated, carbonated beverage that you could purchase at your local store.
Yeah, I tried to
Yeah,
search
you
it
looked
out
for it.
locally.
It's on Amazon.
Yeah, it is on Amazon. I could not find it. Well, I went to their website and I just did a local search and nothing popped up. So I went to good old Amazon and it was right there. Yep,
Yeah,
there you go.
yeah.
That's
Yeah, it's backwards.
that's,
Woo!
that's the
There you
one.
go.
That's it.
So let's see. I just saw one more thing. Great discussion. Thank you. No, thank you for being involved in the discussion. Everybody that's on the YouTube live tonight, we appreciate it. Had some great feedback, great comments. That's good to see. So guys, let's do some final thoughts. I appreciate you guys taking the time and being on here. Brandon, you want to start?
Sure. Yeah. So like I was saying, take it in moderation. Like the doc was saying, just figure out why and start slow and test things. But don't think that you need caffeine because you need caffeine. Try water first, because water actually gives you much more of a boost than you can ever imagine. Other than that, yeah, stay safe on my, from me. But I'll be teaching this lecture doing Texas EMS in Wisconsin here in November. There's a whole bunch of everyone signed up, but COVID has ultimate plan, but that's all virtual, and hopefully I can see some of you guys around the country if I get to go out. So thank
Absolutely.
you for your time. Yeah.
2021, right? We're hoping for 2021 will be the year that we get back to like in-person meets and education and training and everything that 2020 has not been. Instagram, triple tango.
Yeah. Instagram, BDHeggie3, that's my personal one, or triple_tango. That's a company that my wife and I do, and I just travel around teaching everything from CPR to critical care to rescue to trauma, whatever. So yeah, follow us on there, and I'm pretty sure Chief's gonna put that in the notes for all that. It probably already is. So yeah, and feel free to get a hold of me for whatever, and I like to BS, and I'll have a beer or two. So
awesome. Thank you. Dr. Kent, your turn.
Hey.
The sun has set. It looks like the sun has set.
Yeah, look at that perfect timing. Well, thank you very much for having me. I really appreciate the honor and the privilege of being a guest today. So thank you very much. It's been a lot of fun, and I didn't drop one F-bomb, so I'm very proud of myself.
Did very well. Did very well.
We're not done yet. We're not done. So yeah, the takeaway is I honor your experience. I understand why we do what we do. Give yourself some grace, and knowing that we're not telling you to just stop, just honor your own experience as well and try to figure out the why. I don't think anyone alive has actually entered a pandemic before. So there's a lot of stuff going on in the world right now. There's a lot of stressors. There's a lot of transitions. We are all just taxed out and fatigued. So try to get down to the root cause of what actually benefits you. And if you do need support, you do need a supplement, I get you. I understand. So moderation with the energy drinks, moderation with the coffee. Try not to have it anytime past noon, just knowing that it's a chemical that's going to keep you awake. It's going to impact your sleep and make you tired the next day. It's just going to make the cycle worse. So address the cause. Do some deep breathing techniques, work with a physician to isolate if there's anything else that you might be dealing with. And then maybe we could discuss more in the future, some more, caveats of how to improve health at large. But ways to kind of reach out to me would be on Instagram. I'm at Dr._Michelle Kent. And I believe the tag is First Responder Health. You can also email me on my personal work email, and that would be michellekent.nd, and that's N as in Nancy, D as in dog, at gmail.com.
Awesome. Thank you very much. We're definitely going to dive into some more stuff in the future, because there's definitely a lot to talk about. Especially when it comes to health. I talk a lot about fitness. It's my thing. I enjoy it. But I did a video the other day on the health side of health and fitness, because I know so many people ignore, their idea of their annual physical is whatever their agency is giving them,
If any.
Yeah. If any at all, you're right. And, talked about that a little bit the other day, how important it is to develop a relationship with a physician that is outside of your agency, that, you know, can take a deeper dive into what your agency does for you, which is usually, not saying it's not valuable, because I know plenty of guys that have found underlying health concerns off of that physical, but it's not the deepest of dives into your, you know, into your life and your health. So we're definitely going to talk about this again, and I look forward to that. I want to thank everybody for jumping on tonight. Those of you that were on live on YouTube that joined in on the conversation, this will be posted as well on the podcast for our normal Wednesday posting. Will actually be tomorrow, the 26th. So it'll be on all of the podcast players. Again, you can find me at professional.brotherhood, right? At professional.brotherhood on Instagram, at Chief Soller on Facebook, and on the web at professionalbrotherhood.com. And again, if you have some info that you want to share based on tonight's episode, you have a comment that you want to share, you want to reach out to either one of these guys, and you just forgot how to reach out to them, professional VFF, that's professionalvff@gmail.com. Look forward to your emails, your comments, your concerns, your additions to the show. It's all great stuff, and I appreciate everybody's time and attention and joining and listening to us. So thanks again, Brandon, Michelle. Thank you very much. I appreciate you guys. Appreciate your time and your expertise. Until next time, don't forget. Until next time, don't forget, a paycheck does not make you a professional. How you approach the job does. Thank you. Stay healthy and stay safe. We're off.
Awesome. That was fun.